my associate from Novatech this morning, Esteban Flores, will be providing support for us and answering questions in the background. So feel free to send a chat question at the bottom of your screen, or we'll allow some time for questions at the end. So, and Esteban, did you want to say anything at the beginning here to greet any of the team?
Hola a todos, bienvenidos. Mi nombre es Esteban Flores, estoy encargado del área de soporte técnico. Nosotros vamos a estar apoyando a Chris. Cualquier pregunta que tengan, por favor, envíenmela vía chat y nosotros directamente se las estaremos contestando. Okay, Chris.
All right, thank you, Esteban. Anyways, I wanted to, on behalf of Novatech and everyone at Audiocontrol, we wanted to thank you for joining in this morning. Looks like we have a few dozen people from Mexico. We are actually doing this webinar from Seattle, Washington, which is where our factory is based. So we're very excited to be able to present you the Audiocontrol products. And my understanding is some of you are familiar with some of the products we make, and we have a number of new products that have come out over the last year that I think been very intriguing and been very successful in different markets around the country, so around the world. So we're hoping that we'll use this as an opportunity to introduce you to them. Many companies know us as a company that manufactured equalizers, and over the years that development of audio equalizers has led to better amplification products, led to better development of better theater products, and products that really work very well for the custom installation market. So I think you'll be very surprised and excited to see all the models and the variations that we have. Certainly one of the highlights that we're going to talk about here today, I'll jump to it and then come back here, is this year and actually this month, and we just sent out an announcement today, Audiocontrol is celebrating our 40th anniversary. So we are a company that's been in business as a manufacturer, by the way. We've manufactured design products for 40 years, since 1977. So we certainly thank all of the dealers and customers that got us here. We're very proud of that. But I think it's important to you to know that when you're talking to your customers and you're including products in a project, this is from a company that we're very, very passionate about audio. There's a lot of companies that may have been only on the scene for a few years. So we've been doing this for 40 years. Our business, just so you know, we're distributed all over the United States, plus 30 countries worldwide, with everything being built and shipped out of Seattle, Washington. So when you're putting our products in, you're putting something of quality, you're putting something in that we're very passionate and excited about for home theater. We have two factories actually here in the Washington area, one in Seattle, another one in Spokane. So you're getting products. Some of them are completely vertically designed in terms of built and assembled. Some of them we utilize some local shops, but everything goes through final production and testing here in Seattle. So we feel very, very excited about the products that we're delivering to you that arrive at your clients. So I think you'll see that in the products we talk about. So let's talk a little bit about the customers of ours, and hopefully you'll identify with this. It's the customer base of Novatech also. Audiocontrol Custom, we sell to custom integrators, designers, electronic contractors, builders, designers. The important part here is, we're really not a retail-oriented company, design and integration. We don't really spend any time developing. We don't have an internet channel. So when you're selling our products and you're putting them in proposals, you can feel comfortable that the client won't be out there. I mean, they can certainly shop around and look, but they won't see published retail prices or things like that. So it's very good margin opportunities for you as a dealer, very good performance opportunities for your clients because it matches in. And none of our products are black boxes, so these are products that require programming or calibration or integration or things of that nature. So they're very matching up with what you're doing in the terms of the designs that you're doing for your clients. So we're going to talk a lot about amplifiers and amplifier performance because that's a key part of what's inside of our products, both in distributed audio as well as home theater. And certainly people ask us why audio control amplifiers. What makes them important? Well, number one, obviously, is sound qualities, and why do they sound so good? And I think especially in distributed audio, there's a number of companies that have come out with 20 and 30 and 40 watt low wattage versions of products. And you'll see here what we have today is most of our distributed audio amps go anywhere from 65 to 100 watts per channel, real power levels. So we're definitely much higher than most people, which gives you the ability to, very importantly, sell better speakers and match them up with products with audio control. Above and beyond the power levels, we put some extra design elements into them. We have some new chassis designs that are 2U and 1U, very focused on custom integration with IP ports and RS-232 controls. The Director series, which we'll present to you today, has DSP built into it. So they're very, very installation friendly and designed with a lot of features for the integration team. Plus, they're made in America, so it's a very solid construction that goes from there. Now, the design of a lot of amplifiers, too, we hear from dealers, why do your amplifiers run so cool? And one of the key parts of our design is we run a multi-rail or a Class H amplifier. And as you can see here, what the Class H basically means is a normal amplifier, this top picture here, is when you turn the amplifier on, you're going to get full power levels available to you and full heat. Much like driving your car with your foot on the gas pedal and you're using the clutch just to control the speed. So no matter how loud the amplifier is playing, it's always going to be generating a lot of heat, which is why typical amplifiers can sound warm, but at the same time they can run warm. So it can always be a challenge. Our Class H amplifiers, and this is the design we use that feeds into a lot of our amps, we actually track the signal level that comes in. So our amplifiers tend to run much cooler. So all this blue area you see here is power that's not being wasted. It's a much more efficient use of power, and we can get away with smaller chassis and a little bit less heat sink. So it allows itself to work very good in the custom installation application, as well as what you're doing with the design. Now, on top of that, we've put some design features into the amplifiers to protect them. This is our light drive clipping elimination circuit. And you'll notice in the top image, once again, this is what a traditional amplifier does when you run and clip it. When the parents go out of town and the children decide to have a party, they clip the amplifier, and you end up with this distortion or these flat points here, which can damage speakers. Our light drive protection circuit here actually keeps the amplifier from clipping and allows you to get maximum performance without having to worry about some of those clipping things we were talking about. So a very good feature from that standpoint. Once again, something we've designed in to make our amplifiers even that much more bulletproof. Other things you will see that make these unique is the amplifiers are bridgeable, stable into low impedances, meaning most amps tend to play 8 ohms. We can play down into 4 ohms. We actually have a couple amplifiers that will play down to 2 ohms. So very durable from that standpoint. Short circuit protection, thermal protection, a lot of protection circuits. And honestly, we have no fuses built into them. These are just resettable relays or things that are controlled via the DSP. So there's a lot of things that, once again, are put into the project or put into the system to make them as reliable and as bulletproof as possible for you. One of the things that I encourage all of our dealers and clients to do is always take a look at the back panels. Because we have a number of installation-friendly features that are on here, including discrete inputs on here for each of the channels, plus bus inputs that allow us to take 2 channels and take those 2 channels, and I'll bring up my arrow here and try and direct you to them. And these inputs here allow you to feed the outputs here using dip switches. So 2 channels from a source, a receiver, or a Sonos Connect or something like that could then feed the multiples here using dip switches. So a very popular feature. We have signal sensing to turn the amplifiers on. We have 12-volt triggers to turn the amplifiers on. And we also have a master 12 volts to turn it on. And with our DSP amplifiers, which is our Director series, we can actually turn the amplifiers on via IP. So there's a lot of flexibility that comes from these. And certainly if you are the installation manager within your organization or you discuss that with them, please make sure they look at the back panel and reach out to the team at Novatech or even myself if you wish, if you have more specific questions. So there's a lot of flexibility that comes from these. I see we have a few more people that joined us since we started, so I just wanted to welcome you. I'm Chris Kane. Esteban Flores from Novatech is also on the line too. And he's answering questions in the background. So if you have any questions, feel free to send him an email chat on the back end, or we'll maybe allow some time for questions here at the end. But all right, so within our architect family, what are the applications? Well, we have residential and commercial, obviously, whole house audio, multi-room audio, in-wall speakers, in-ceiling speakers, rocks, outdoors, invisible speakers. And one of the main key things about our products is the equalization capabilities that we've incorporated in, which gives us the flexibility, and I'll show you that in a moment here, to fine-tune the sound. Because sound, when it plays into a room, can have different impacts. A nice sounding speaker in a showroom, when you put it into a large conference room or a boardroom or a large seating area, is going to have a different sound to it. So the equalization controls give you some flexibility that are really, really nice in terms of making it sound good. And the clients appreciate that because you're giving them best performance. If you're doing installation, you'll appreciate that because it's right there in front of you. Now you'll see here on the front panels of these products, you'll see these are our Architect series, and the Architect series has equalization on the front side of it. What we're going to talk about here this morning is the Architect P series, which is a new generation for us, relatively new. We introduced these at CEDIA last year, that allowed us to offer a lot of capabilities in our products and capitalize on it. So the main things with the P series certainly is the equalization controls. Additionally, high power. So you'll have 100 watts per channel out of 8, 12, or 16 channel models into 8 ohms, all channels driven. And that's a number you'll see us talk about a lot. 200 watts if you run them down into 4 ohms, by the way. So very robust. And do you really need 100 or 200 watts in projects some days? Dealers may think, is that more than I need? Well, it could be if you were running it just at low volumes. But the headroom that comes from having an additional 100 watts makes the system sound smoother. It sounds more balanced as opposed to straining it. So that's where the additional power level comes in. Additionally, you can take a 16-channel amplifier, and normally a project would have, say, 2 or 3 amplifiers with one amplifier for outdoor speakers and maybe another amplifier for the main listening area and then a multi-channel amp. In the case of our 16-channel, you can have one 16 by 100 amplifier that can run an entire system, and it only occupies a 2U rack space. So a lot of flexibility that comes from that that you'll like. We have within the Architect P series models that have equalization on the front panel, and I'll show you that in a moment, and models without EQ, depending on your application. Obviously, the compact chassis. And then one of the things you're seeing more and more with our amplifiers now is just kind of addressing the analog sunset, as we say. And we have multiple analog and we have digital inputs on here. So I can feed an audio signal in here digitally, and then I can route that signal to any of the amplified outputs here. Or I can feed a bus signal in here and do the same thing. And now, or I can just do my local discrete inputs. And these are all configurable via these dip switches that you'll see here. So a lot of flexibility in terms of application. And I'll show you some other models as we get along here that get a little bit more, even more flexibility from that standpoint. So this is the Architect Model 2680 EQ. This is our 16 by 100 model. And as you can see in the front panel here, obviously, one of the key things is these equalization controls. And there's equalization. Don't let all the knobs confuse you. But there are 6 or 5 bands here for each pair of channels, which gives you the ideal amount of control for balancing the system out on a per zone basis. So each set of speakers is going to have a slightly different environmental space, so we have the ability to fine-tune the sound there. And that gives you some flexibility. Now, the first rule of equalization is you don't have to equalize every channel, so certainly keep an eye on which ones make the most sense for you. But equalization is definitely a differentiator from anything that's out there in the market. We take this and match it up in a 2U chassis, and then as we walk through here, we have our speaker level inputs, our line level inputs as we spoke about, discrete 12-volt triggers on each zone, as well as dip switches for mono and stereo capabilities. So there's a lot of flexibility in this amplifier, and 16 channels also, and it's bridgeable. So if you want to have, extra power levels for certain channels, you can do that. Or if you need less power for smaller zones, you have that available to you. Also within the Architect family, we have the Architect model. Let's get my slide to pop here. the model 2280 EQ. Now this is a 12-channel model of what we just spoke about. This is 100 watts per channel times 12, also with digital inputs and analog inputs and equalization on the front. So for smaller projects and less systems. And there are also two models within the family I didn't show here, but that have available with the same power level but without equalization. Now with that said, we probably sell 75% of our models with equalization controls, so there's certainly some flexibility that comes from that. This is an exciting new entry for us into the Architect series, and this is the new Architect model P800. Now this has become a very, very successful product for us. This is 100 watts per channel times 8. So and those are, once again, all channels driven. And this is a 1U, very compact amplifier. The cost on it is very reasonable. The Novatech team can provide you with a complete price list. This one has our discrete analog inputs, as we spoke about before. And additionally, it has digital inputs and the bus inputs. But once again, 1U, very small, lots of power. When you're looking for something that takes up a tremendous amount of space, or will not take up a tremendous amount of space, this is a great option from that standpoint. And the power level is great. We'll talk about our Rialto and Bijou amplifiers here in a little bit, which are our small zone amplifiers, but this basically is close to having 4 of those inside of one unit. If you have projects that are relying on a digital source, say a Sonos Connect or an Apple TV or something of that sort, the digital inputs that we have here allows for great flexibility, plus you have your analog inputs. So in some cases where maybe the dealer is looking for a simpler system, this is certainly a good solution from that. So very, very exciting amplifier. We've used this not only in distributed audio. I've seen this used in theater for Atmos applications. I've seen it used as a subwoofer amp. It's not the biggest sub amp out there, but certainly a nice solution from that standpoint. So I think you'll very, very, very impressed with this amplifier. A lot of power, good cost, really good value, and obviously the audio control performance, which is very important to our customers today. So, oh, I jumped over here. If your power is not as much of an issue, or you need less power within the Architect family, we have our model 2660. This is a little bit lower cost. This is a 65 watt per channel unit times 16, no equalization controls. Once again, a 2U chassis, analog and digital inputs, outputs. So a really good solution product, you know, kind of the good workhorse amplifier, and without taking up a tremendous amount of space. And then if you need an amplifier that's going to go down to low impedances, this is kind of our industrial amplifier some days, the Architect Model 210. Now this is a 2-channel high current amplifier. What I mean by high current is it can go down to 2 ohms, and down at 2 ohms, as you'll see here, the power level goes up substantially. So you have 60 watts per channel into 8 ohms, 120 into 4, 240 watts into 2 ohms, and if you bridge it, you can probably get over 400 watts out of this. So this is a really workhorse amplifier, and I have one of these actually running a number of speakers at my house. I think I wired it up at 1.8 ohms or something like that, and it's running and running and running. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but a good solution from that standpoint. But if you've got a second zone out from a receiver or a control system, and you need to run a lot of speakers indoors or outdoors, this is a wonderful amplifier for that. And we hear from a lot of dealers who have had some other amplifier in there that is blowing up or can't handle low signals that use this and are very, very happy with the performance of it. So definitely something you want to get your hands on, take a listen. So from there, and that was our Architect series. And like I said before, if you have specific questions, we can make my email address available at the end, or please email Esteban, and we have cut sheets and information on all these products on our website within the Architect series. So please feel free, when we encourage you when we're done with the webinar, what are the 2 or 3 things that you're interested in, and let us know, and we can at least make that connection. Now, from the Architect series, obviously,
Chris,
yes, sir.
I have a question.
Okay.
Any of the amplifiers can work in 70 volts?
These are not 70 volt. These are just strictly 110 amplifiers.
Okay, thank you.
The nice, yeah. And to that point, one of the nice things, because there is some sound quality compromises that come about with 70 volt, and you'll see a 70 volt product from us probably by the end of the year. That's going to incorporate some of the DSP and things we're talking about. But the nice thing about our traditional 8-ohm amplifiers, and especially the high current ones, is you can run a lot of speakers long distances, definitely. So, but good question. You know, that's kind of a direction we're seeing with some of the projects that are out there. With the development of our amplifiers and obviously the growth of network and Ethernet and IP within people's projects, a natural progression for us was to develop network amplifiers. And about 8 to 10 years ago, we developed the first director series, or the first DSP-based amplifier with IP control. And what you'll notice, obviously, on the front here is that there is no switches or knobs on the front, because all the functions and control are being done vis-a-vis IP on the back side of it. So, and we'll get into the GUI and applications here. So we have a director series that allows for basically you can put this in the rack anywhere you want and log on to it and take care of it. So the Director M series, which stands for matrixing, and you'll see my little picture of the matrix up here if any of you guys are familiar with that movie. But matrixing means I have not only the ability to do a DSP and control signals from one room to the next, but I also have the ability to work with control systems and not just be a discrete amplifier, but take inputs 1 and 2 and route them to outputs 8 and 9 and do that via IP control. And I'll show you how we do that. And there are drivers available for these matrixing amplifiers from the C4, Savants, Crestron, RTI, Claire controls. So we have a lot of different things here that make these a very, very unique amplifier and a great solution. So let's take a walk through one of these real quickly. You can get a rough idea of some of the feature applications that kind of grow from this. We have obviously our discrete inputs on here for each pair of channels, and then we also have pass-through jacks. So basically any signal that comes in for each of these inputs on the analog inputs will then immediately pass through. So if you have a larger project that's more than 8 stereo channels, maybe you want to double up on you take your sources and double up, I can daisy chain out of these signals. I also have digital bus outputs here, and you'll see in the software I have the ability to take any of these inputs and route those signals to any of the amplified outputs or to any of the digital bus outputs. And that routing to the digital bus output can then go to another amplifier, another director, a Rialto, something with a digital audio in, or a D-to-A converter of some sort. Now, we also have 2 digital inputs. So while this may look like an 8x8 amplifier, this is really more of a 10x10 amplifier, where I'm actually taking the signal level here, feeding it to the outputs here, amplified, and I have full D-to-A, A-to-D conversion in here. So I can basically route these signals any way I want vis-a-vis the GUI I will show you. Our network port here, which allows us to talk to source units, allows you remote login and some other configurations. And I'm sorry, that's a 12-volt trigger, not an RS-232 that's on here. So a fair amount of flexibility that comes with this amplifier from that standpoint. All right, and this is within the Director series, and there's 3 models we'll get into. Here are the configuration, and like I said, it's controllable via Telnet protocol, and so you can use some basic communication languages with it, or if you utilize any of these companies that I've got listed here, Savant, C4, Claire Controls, RTI, there are drivers either available from us on our website at the bottom of the website, or available from these control systems specifically, because each company does something a little bit differently. So that makes it a lot flexible, and all of a sudden your need to use, a lot of these control system companies do a nice job with control, but when it comes to amplification and speakers, they tend to be a little thin. So you can actually take the application, a really good amplifier, like from an audio control, match it up with a nice speaker system, and pass that from there. Now, with the amplifier, I have a login like this where I have the ability to go in and I can actually do equalization via the DSP. So instead of having to run back and forth to the rack to make the adjustments, I can log onto the amplifier, and you'll see I have here graphic equalization controls. I have 6 bands of graphic. By the way, I can split or unlock each of these zones, and that gives me separate left and separate right channel equalization. So a lot more flexibility, you know, for if you've got a speaker in the hallway and another one in the bathroom. I also have 2 parametric bands, and those allow for really specific equalization, whether it's a narrow area or a broad area, so I can fine-tune the sound that comes from there. A lot of our dealers would take these equalization curves, set it up a room for a speaker, and then they would turn around, and you can actually save these equalization settings into a preset. So you'd want to have a standard smooth EQ, and then maybe you also want to offer your clients a party mode, or maybe you want to offer them a nighttime mode with a little bit less bass. So I can put those into user presets that are then accessible vis-a-vis the IP command. So you can create scenes for your customer if you want to, or you don't have to. You just have that available. We'll talk about in a moment here is we've actually taken the equalization process another step, and we have we created our Sound Partners program where we have some default EQ curves built into it. But we'll step to that in a second. Now, there is some really nice contouring or repurposing of channels that can happen here. And you'll see I can actually take the amplifier channels and I can make them full range, or I can make them high pass channels, or I can make them low pass channels. So that means I could create a subsat system where some of the channels are running high pass satellites, and then maybe a couple of the channels could run smaller in-room subwoofers. So I can repurpose those channels any way I want, and then I can configure a high pass or low pass crossover on each of the channels. I can also create a band pass if it comes to that. So there's some interesting flexibility that goes there. Lip sync, which allows me some time delay. So if you have those issues where you're walking from one zone to the next, and there's some delay just based on digital latency, you can adjust for that, which is a very nice feature. And then some user-friendly things like shelving frequencies, bass, treble, loudness. These are all things that you can once again make accessible to the client so they can make some changes on the fly or not, depending on what your client's needs are. And then, of course, we've got our min-max, our volume level. It's a full preamp, zone selector with source selection. So you can make all that. Now, this is the GUI, the interface. You can log on, type the IP and address for the amplifier, and you'll see this pop up. And you can do all the programming and control of this. And as I said before, if you have remote access, you can actually log on and do this remotely for the client. This menu here, our desktop, this allows us to monitor the input, the temperature, the protection status, just to see if there's anything going on. So a lot of our dealers are doing remote monitoring these days. They need products that have data coming out of it, so this is an ideal solution from that. And then we have the ability to turn the amp zones on and off, assign inputs to outputs, and really perform full signal matrixing from this standpoint. So there's lots and lots of flexibility that comes from that, as well as the DSP capabilities. So equalization capabilities, some of our dealers go, wow, that's I like that, but is there a way to speed this up, or what's the best EQ curve? And you know, in our experience, and certainly a lot of our dealers' experience, there's no one particular magic curve. What you're trying to do is remove the dramatic peaks and dips that are popping up because of speaker placement. The speaker's too close to the wall. You have bright surfaces, tile, glass, things like that. Large spaces, you know, they can all have an impact on and take a nice speaker and change the way it sounds. To kind of take that to another level, we reached out to a number of leading speaker manufacturers and asked them to give us some good default or starting EQ points, and that allowed us to develop our Sound Partners program. So you'll see we have here companies like James, Origin, Stealth, Triad Monitor, Nuevo. Got a few more we're hoping to announce by CEDIA, where we've asked them to give us good starting points. And most of them, these are not power heavy lifting EQ points. They have done some equalization right around the crossover points. Depending on the size of the architectural speaker, they've adjusted the bottom end to clean it up a little bit. So this is a good starting point. And in some cases, it'd be a finish point. Or once you have the speakers installed in the room, you may actually want to take some time and fine-tune that curve even a little bit more to match those speakers up with the room itself. So It's a great use from that standpoint, and it's built into it. You go in and there's basically a drop-down menu. You select the speaker manufacturer that you wish to use. You select the models, and if the models that we have in there are all ones that are provided by the speaker manufacturer. And then when you do that, there's an EQ curve that will be applied in the background. And then from there you can fine-tune it. It speeds up the installation process for your team. It gives you some performance that's defined by the speaker manufacturer, and allows you to kind of deliver that maximum experience to the client all the time. So this has been a very, very successful partner program for us, and it's certainly helped. Now, if there's a speaker that's not in here, you know, let's say you have something, a custom speaker you built or a brand you use, you can always go through and spend a little more time calibrating that first job. And once you've done that, you can then take that curve and then save it, and you can then put that curve back into your presets and upload it on your computer, and that particular setting can be your starting point. So you've now created your own custom Novatech EQ or something along those lines. So there's certainly some good flexibility that you have available for that above and beyond the traditional ones, and that allows you to be different from that standpoint. And here's the brand drop-down curves. I think this one's for the Origin and Stealth and Nuvo. So this is a very, very exciting feature for our products for these DSP amplifiers. So we have unique equalization controls. We have our Sound Partners program. The chassis designs are all very small and compact. 2U, we have 65 to 100 watts per channel, and with matrixing capabilities. Now there's 3 models within the family. There's the Director 6400. This is the 65 by 16. And then this is the big brother, and honestly we do more with the big brother. This is the 100 watts by 16 model M6800. So same functionality, but almost twice the power level of the 6400. And this fits into that application where one amplifier can run maybe some outdoor speakers, maybe some indoor speakers, as well as running your whole house audio in one compact 2U chassis. So this is a very exciting unit. And then to round out the line, and this is a model that kind of fed a little bit off of our P800, the Director model M4800. Now this is a 1U 8-channel amplifier with full DSP capability. Now with that said, and it looks similar to the P800, but you'll notice on here we have a lot more inputs. We actually have 4 digital inputs on here, plus 4 stereo analog inputs. And I can route any of these input signals to any of these output signals. And once I have these signals put together, I can then control them via IP, via the drivers that are built into the unit. So this makes a very, very flexible unit in a couple of ways. It can operate, obviously, as part of a control system from Control 4 or Crestron or Savant or Claire or anyone like that. Or it could operate as a standalone. If you've got a digital source, an autonomics piece, or Sonos Connects or something like that, you can feed 3 or 4 digital inputs in here that could then feed to the amplifier going out of it. So for a simple system where the client may or may not want a control system, this is a great solution from that. Now because it's a distributed audio amplifier, sometimes, you know, people go, well, I don't think the client, you know, they're not a big audiophile, or they may or may not, you know, need a lot of sound. Well, this actually has a lot of power to it. And as the distributed audio amplifier, you'll see here, this one actually was a recipient of the Tech Home Mark of Excellence Award for Best Audio Amplifier of the Year. Now, it was competing against other amplifiers that honestly were more home theater or 2-channel oriented. So this is a great sounding amplifier, plus being into that distributed audio category. So very, very flexible from that standpoint. Once again, something that I think you'll see a lot of success with. Doesn't take up a lot of space. Gives you a tremendous amount of power. So definitely a very important product from that standpoint. So I think you guys, especially those that are doing a lot of control systems, will like this product. And once again, despite the horsepower that's involved, here's a project, for instance, that had our Director 4400 in it, interfaced with Savant, a little tiny system that only had 6 amplifiers in it. So we're able to fill in some gaps and deliver nice power from there. So if you haven't had a chance to experience the Director amplifiers, I would certainly connect with the team at Novatech. You know, there's more information, of course, about these on our website. But this is a very, very nice model, and with obviously the direction of networks in projects these days, whereas dealers were controlling networks, the director is just a great solution from that standpoint. Okay, and once again, I encourage you, if you have any questions, you can send them to us at the end, or reach out to the team throughout the presentation here. So now, an extension of our amplifier line, obviously, as we were going up from 8 to 12 to 16 channels at the same time, our traditional 2-channel line, dealers were looking for solutions for products that interface with, products like Sonos and Apple TVs and a lot of the digital-based sources that are coming out there. So we took one of our traditional amplifiers and added digital audio input on there, and that led us to the development and the introduction of our Rialto and Bijou series. Now, this is the true size of the amplifier relative to a Sonos Connect. So this is a very compact amplifier. It doesn't take up a lot of space, but at the same time, it's an amazing workhorse. It puts out 100 watts per channel into 8 ohms. So it's a real workhorse power amp, stable down in the low impedances, and it has digital as well as analog inputs on it. So we'll be able to connect this with the digital sources that are out there. And here's a picture of the back panel. And you'll see that we have our analog inputs here, plus we have our digital inputs here, and our subwoofer outputs here. So very, very flexible gain controls as a dedicated amplifier. And the inputs are prioritized, so I can say digital has priority or analog has priority, and when I turn signals on and off, it'll adjust that. Now, this amplifier has done very, very well for us and kind of helped develop the category in terms of power and delivering on applications. For instance, here's an application that had 14 of the Sonos Connects and 14 of our amplifiers, probably a little more than somebody needed, but at the same time, the client had a full-blown control system in his house before, had difficulties operating the system, and he really, at the end of the day, when it came time to update the system, wanted something that just sounded really good. It was easier to operate. So he chose to use Sonos as the control system and utilize the Rialto and the Bijou as a feed-in amplifier from there. And that's what they ended up in this. Now, this is predated, I think, us making our multi-channel amplifiers, so I think you will find a really good solution from that. One of the things that came from the development of the Rialto 400 is dealers asked for, hey, we'd like to see more control, we'd like to see volume, source selection. So that led us to introduce the Rialto 600. And that now has, this model has full volume control via IR, and we provide a remote. And with that remote, we can do volume up and down for the amplifier. I can also do source selection. So I have my 2 digital inputs here, plus I have analog inputs here, and my subwoofer outputs here. And I can use my remote to select between these, as well as change the volume up and down. This model also has bass management capabilities. You'll see it's on the dip switches, it's a little small, but I can make the amplifier play full range, or I can play 80 hertz and up, or I can play 80 hertz and down. So if I want to use this as a subwoofer amp, or I want to use it as a satellite amplifier, I have that flexibility. So the bass management capabilities, the digital, full integration, we're controllable via our RS-232 with this model. So everything you love about our amplifiers, plus more and more configuration and flexibility that comes from that. And I got to tell you, hopefully you've had a chance to listen to one. It's a little weird doing a webinar because I can't see people in front of me, and I can hopefully see heads nodding and people acknowledging that, hey, this has got, I've heard one before, and it's pretty amazing because despite the size of the amplifier, it can drive a lot of speakers. The extension, their natural extension from this family too, is where dealers said, hey, I like the power, but you know what, I have applications where the Rialto is a little large for what I'm trying to do. Is there a way I can configure this and put it into a smaller space? So we took that Rialto series and put it into a smaller chassis size, and voila, we have the Bijou. And the Bijou is a compact zone amplifier that it almost like you see here on the screen. It's a 1U chassis, 1U high, half rack wide, So it fits into applications real nicely without taking up a lot of space. Plus providing it's the same power levels as with the Rialto. So you have 100 watts per channel into 8 ohms and 200 watts into 4 ohms. Now to facilitate all these installation capabilities, we also have a number of accessories here, and I'll jump back to that other slide in a second. We have a back box that can go into the wall behind a television. We have a mount that can hang behind a TV. So if you're doing commercial applications like offices or hotel rooms or things like that, you can use this behind the TV and you can mount the amplifier on there. We have a rack kit that allows us to put 2 units side by side. We have a single rack that lets us put 1 unit in there. And then we have just rack gears, so you can mount it behind furniture or put it in the walls. So lots of flexibility here in terms of mounting and installation, which is what I wanted to be for those that want to hide. And as you can see, there's an IR input on the, or IR repeater receiver on the front. There's also an IR on the back. Same configuration as we have with the other amplifiers, although we use a removable Phoenix connector for the speaker connections and versus the 5-way binding post. So tremendous sounding amplifier, doesn't take up a lot of space, very compact, great for residential and industrial applications because it's very, very durable and it's small from that space standpoint. So I certainly encourage you, if your Novatech sales member has not had a chance to give you an audition with one of these amplifiers, you'll want to hear it. People always start off by listening to small bookshelf speakers with it, and then they go to middle-sized speakers, and then you find themselves working there all the way up to large towers. So this is a great workhorse amplifier. And as a side note, as above and beyond what you can do with outdoor speakers and in distributed audio zones and outdoor zones, this is also a great amplifier for Dolby Atmos applications too, where you have a receiver and you need 2 more amp channels. This is perfect for height channels. So we've used this in a number of those kind of scenarios. So real flexible from that standpoint. I would certainly encourage you to get an audition from one of these and try them out. There's a lot of performance that people come with. So, all right, and then we're going to the area here that's obviously near and dear to my heart. And once again, if questions are coming through, please feel free to chat with Esteban. Looks like we have a few more people have come on since we started here, which is great. But please let him know what those questions are, and we can certainly address those to you. The area of home theater components is interesting because as theater has grown in awareness, it's very exciting because we have so many more consumers. And it's not just, you know, the husband goes out and buys a home audio system. Now it's the family can enjoy a theater. The family is looking for performance. Now, whether that's a dedicated theater or a media room or an extension of a kitchen or a great room, something along those lines, people like that audio and video experience, which is what brings those connections together. Audio Control Products, I mean, we are a performance-oriented company. So anytime you utilize our products in that theater, boy, you're going to really, really jumpstart the experience, especially when it gets to that level of audio. And we have several receivers in a pre-pro and amplifiers that fit into that quite nicely and can deliver that audio performance and do it in the right way. And at the same time, there's some cool features here we'll highlight that I think you'll find yourself making some good margin and good ways to differentiate. So definitely different. I mean, when you think about receivers and home theater, sometimes if you haven't done a lot of them, or some people's markets as well, there's a $500 receiver from blah, 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 some Japanese company and these speakers and an inexpensive TV. Well, that's one approach to theater. I think we're tending to focus on a little bit more of the dedicated, higher level of performance with speakers, higher level performance with video, and subsequently, if you're going to sell $8,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 speakers, which is where you want to be in some cases, it's difficult to sell a $300 receiver with that and justify that. You need something of caliber and higher quality, which has led the direction here of the development of our concert series and our AVR series. Now, our new products, and this, when I say new, we've been shipping these for about 1.5 years, but they all highlight some obviously very, very key features. Number one, we support HDMI 2.0 and HDCP 2.2, including HDR. So we have full HDR compliance, great for performance. So we're doing 4K at the high level. There's obviously a lot of 4K things you're getting thrown around out there. So I think you'll be very comfortable with that. Secondly, we incorporated Dolby Atmos, and then at the end of last year, we also are now incorporating DTSX. So the major formats are supported, which is very important. And then number 3, above and beyond what we, one of the key things going back to the roots of audio control has to do with room correction and measurement and audio performance. And we utilize Dirac Live as our room correction source. And we'll talk about Dirac even more so. But this is one of the first room correction systems we've seen out there that gives measurable performance, audio differences, and at the same time, it doesn't take hours upon hours to do calibration. And if nothing else, for those of you that are doing installation, the Dirac Live microphone measurement system actually plugs in your computer, as to a plugging into the receiver or the processor. So you don't have to figure out how to run a cable, 400 feet back to the rack of equipment. So it makes that process that much simpler. The root of our line here within the receivers is the Concert AVR9. Now this is quite honestly the most powerful home theater receiver that's out there in the market. It puts out 200 watts per channel, all channels driven at 4 ohms. So it's great for high current systems or very accurate speakers that tend to be maybe a little less efficient, and you need power. Now, in some cases, you could argue maybe I should be using separates. Well, the horsepower in the AVR9, if you've got the space, I would certainly go towards a separate system. But in a lot of cases where you may or may not have that space, the AVR9 is a great solution from that. Supports all the 4K Ultra formats, 7 HDMI inputs, as well as outputs. I think I have a picture of the back panel here. I probably should show that. IP control with drivers plus serial control. And you'll see here one of the nice things we've done is the silk screening on the back of the unit. I mean, we're very installer centric. We've taken all the inputs and they are silk screened, and the offsetting color is white, and all the outputs are in black. So it's easy when you're peeking around the back as an installer to figure out which input should go where and vice versa. So very flexible from that standpoint. And with this, it gives me the ability to configure a system as a 5.1.2, .4, 7.1.2, 7.1.4. Now I have 7 amplified channels. I can repurpose 2 of these channels. So I could do a 5.1.2 Atmos configuration using the power within the amplifier. If I go into a 5.1.4 or 7.1.4, I would then use the preamp outputs on here to operate and drive an outboard amplifier like a Bijou or a Rialto. Hey, very convenient. So a lot of flexibility that comes from this. And boy, we're getting great reviews. Just had a wonderful review on our Maestro M9 that came out, where they were very complimentary about the performance. So definitely something you want to incorporate into those projects you have. If you have a system that requires a little bit less power and working with a little tighter of a budget, the Concert AVR7 is a great solution. And this, unlike some companies that maybe they have a good, better, best, and there's a dramatic performance difference between the models. The 7 and the 9 use the same video and audio switching. The big difference here is the amplifier power. The AVR7 is 100 watts per channel and to 8 ohms. It's stable into lower impedances, but it's not a high current design, so the power level stays constant. But it has the capabilities of Dirac and the Atmos and DTSX built into it. So great solution, a little bit less power. Now when I say less power, it's still 100 watts per times 7, which is more powerful than probably 85% of the receivers that are out there. So a wonderful solution from that standpoint. The same kind of flexibility that we looked at before in terms of Atmos and DTSX configuration. Something that's fairly new, and some of you may have bought some of our receivers last year, but at the beginning of this year, we are now offering all of our processors and all of our receivers in the traditional gloss finish, but we're also offering it now in this real sexy espresso black. And this is an anodized black where we've gone back and reverse etched the logos and the names on there. So if you're looking for products that go into a rack, and this seems to be kind of the direction, we've got a nice look that fits for those. So when you go to order those, make sure you'll call out espresso black. And just for reference, by the way, with home theater, all of the distributed audio amplifiers we sell all come with rack mounts. For the home theater receivers and home theater amplifiers, rack mounts are extra. So make sure you order those when you include those when you're ordering different models, and especially when you order the Bijou, because the Bijou has a number of different rack options from there. Now, from the receiver family, we grow even further, and this is our Maestro M9 Theater Pre-Pro, and this is an exciting Pre-Pro because up until this point, if you wanted to get a preamp product that had a lot of processing and things like that, honestly, you'd have to go to a level of a data set or maybe to the level of a synthesis or a product of that capable. And now you're talking about $25,000 or $30,000 US. So and I don't know the exact product pricing in Mexico, but for less than half of that, the Maestro M9. Now this gives you balanced inputs and balanced outputs. So if you have that client who says, you know what, I want to have my best theater experience, plus I want to use it as a 2-channel receiver and get a great audio performance, then this is an ideal product for that standpoint. So I would certainly encourage you to audition this. What we've done here is taken the amplified section out and utilized the same 2.0, 2.2 video support circuits. We've added discrete DAC, so you get a little bit better signal-to-noise ratio on the audio performance, and then you run analog outputs on here to your amplifiers. So this is a really, really nice solution product. Has gotten some amazing reviews. I apologize for not including these in the presentation, but if you look on our website, there are some very, very nice comments that came out from reviewers, including a recent one from Secrets of Home Theater, kind of pointing towards this as one of the best products within that category. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. Now, the one piece that kind of brings a lot of our products together that is, audio control being a room correction oriented company is the Dirac Live software, and I could probably spend an hour just talking about that. But a lot of you, when I say room correction, probably immediately went, oh gosh, this is going to take a long time, and the results are mixed, and the room may sound flat, or how do I get paid for it? So those are all things that certainly when we looked at room correction systems, we wanted to have a good solution. Now, Dirac's a patented system it's a European company that actually got their start doing fixed DSP work for car manufacturers, Aston Martins and BMWs and Rolls-Royce. And if I understand correctly, if you bought one of those cars, I personally don't have an Aston Martin, but if you bought one 10, 15 years ago and it had a premium sound system in it, Dirac was part of the process they used to come up with the DSP circuit for that. So they've been focused on performance for a long time. They deal with not only traditional frequency response, but also impulse, or the way things arrive in time and level. So they go above and beyond a traditional room correction, which is a lot of microphone measurements summed together and mixed into a pot, and you sound differently. Dirac actually looks at things discretely and makes those adjustments in 9 different measuring spots with some pretty good results. This gives you an idea of the screens, and the process is pretty straightforward. I mean, it looks a little complicated with the screens, but honestly, you select whether it's an auditorium or a couch. You select, it'll tell you where to put the microphones at. We go through and take our measurements. Once we've captured our measurements, it'll create what you see here is this, the current curve. And then this line right here, this is our target curve. Now I can go in there, and that's the nice thing about this is I can go in and make changes to this target curve and apply more, hey, I'd like it to be a little boomier, or like a little bit smoother, or whatever the case may be. And then Dirac will take their curve, or the measurement of the system, and then it will then look back onto the Dirac servers, and that's where you're going to have a network connection. So once again, your laptop will be the control. It'll be plugged into your processor or talk to your audio control processor via network, which will subsequently be on the internet, and it will be talking to the Dirac servers over in Europe. Captures all that data, sends it over to the Dirac servers. The Dirac servers create the inverse curve, and then it turns around and downloads that over to your system. So a really good solution from that standpoint. And you can go back and do A/B comparisons with it that you can't do with a lot of systems. And here's a couple more measurement screens. And then you can then take that and create some very nice things. So what are our results? You know, you go through the process. Well, what I have found and heard from dealers is, number one, you end up with a lot smoother bass, or more importantly, the bass disappears. And when I say it disappears, it means you're not localizing on where that woofer is anymore. You hear the bass, you experience the bass in the system, but the you know, you're not hearing it booming from one spot. And people like that. They like to have bass without it, you know, tearing their heads off. Maybe it's important when you're selling, when you're impressing someone with car audio, but on home theater you want to do it a certain way. Secondly is the imaging will sound a lot more open, and sometimes you can do that by emphasizing the upper frequencies and delaying it, but it can sound unnatural and a little brittle and harsh. Dirac doesn't do that because they're not dealing with frequency immediately. They're looking at time and level, making sure things arrive at the same time and at the same level, and then making adjustments. You know, and number three, there's just a certain amount of envelopment that'll come from the system where, you know, especially if you're utilizing Dolby Atmos. And a lot of times in a theater, you got to turn it up fairly loud to get those surround effects or to feel kind of caught up in everything. Whereas with Dirac, in particular with Atmos speakers, you're going to feel that you're going to have that sound all around you. So I certainly think you should try it. One of the things about it also is if you haven't done Dirac, or you're a little nervous about it, or your team doesn't do it on a regular basis, and I know the Novatech guys are putting together a team to kind of help with that, but also we can log on, you let us know, and we can log on via Team Viewer to your system on a computer and kind of look at it and walk you through the steps as need be and guided. So don't let the, you know, I haven't done calibration in a while, don't let that be a deterrent. We're here to support you on that, and that's the level of support you're going to get from Audio Control. So anyways, specific questions on Dirac, please, let's talk about those offline as need be. And then to kind of complement what we do with our home theater receivers and our processors, we have two just amazing home theater amplifiers, high power levels. The Savoy G3, this is a 200 watt, actually it's 203 watts per channel. Into 8 ohms, all channels driven. You can almost do double that into 4 ohms. Don't let the price of it, sometimes people look at it and go, wow, it's not that expensive. But I mean, I've put this amplifier up against amplifiers that are twice as much money in a lot of cases, if not more. And this is a workhorse. It puts out a lot of power and gives you great sound, balanced and unbalanced inputs, you know, just a tremendous amount of flexibility. So I think you'll really, really like this. If you've got a slightly smaller theater, our Pantages, and this is a 5-channel amplifier, and doesn't take up a lot of space. It's a little more compact, 230 watts per channel, all channels driven once again. So, you know, people will look at this and say, okay, well, I have some fairly inefficient speakers I may be using. I'm looking for something higher power level. This is perfect for that. And these are both available in our Espresso Black as well as our classic gloss finish. So certainly encourage you to take a look at that and audition them. I mean, people are really blown away. I mean, amplifiers. And people go, wow, why do audio control amplifiers sound so good? Well, honestly, high power levels, you know, some of the stuff we incorporate in DSP, the ability to play into low impedances, the design. I mean, there's just a lot of really, really key elements that come from that. So I certainly encourage you to look at these for your projects. And as you're speccing things in, please let us know any way we can help. So so that brings us right to almost an hour, which is what I think our commitment was here. And I wanted to allow if there was any questions. Certainly Esteban, I think, is back online or will be back online. Or Esteban, did you get any email questions offline that I could answer for you?
Okay, let me ask.
Sure.
¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta? Si no, como les he recordado, este webinar lo subimos a YouTube para que lo puedan volver a ver. Si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor, pueden enviármela a mi correo. Mi correo es soporte@novotech.com.mx y con todo gusto los puedo apoyar con cualquier pregunta sobre los productos, sobre la instalación, cualquier cosa. No, ¿verdad?
Yeah, the crowd goes wild.
Yeah, they don't have any question.
No problem.
Okay.
Well, if you can make, they obviously have your contact information, and if you can forward the attendees, my email address is chris.k@audiocontrol.com. Happy to answer any questions they may have on presentations or anything's going from there.
Okay. Thanks for your time.
And I believe that's what this final screen says. So great.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank everybody on behalf of Audiocontrol and Novatech for participating today, and certainly for the team at Novatech for facilitating this webinar. And I look forward to meeting any of you and all of you at any upcoming shows. But please let us know if we have any questions. And have a great summer. Thank you.
Gracias. Thank you. Thank you. Gracias a todos. Que tengan buena tarde y hasta luego. Thank you, Chris. See you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.